Courage to be Real, where real stories break the silence.
Everybody, welcome to the Courage to be Real, where real conversations happen. On this channel, we like to talk about the things that most people avoid. That is where the power to change our lives actually lives. No, I'm Jason Plevell. I'm a father and a coach, and I'm here with Drew Forman, the founder of the We and Cam Project, which we are actually going to be talking a lot about the effects of childhood trauma and what the We and Cam Project is all about, being a hope and a light and a resource for people that are struggling through that. So stick around to the very end of that, because Drew and his project they've got some wonderful tools and resources and a free gift for everybody at the end. So Drew, what exactly are we talking about today?
So today, Jason, and good to see you, by the way, we're going to talk about recognizing the warning signs of child abuse. Now, some are going to be obvious, and some people are going to say, I pretty much know what to look for. Some are not so obvious. So indulge us a little bit. We're going to go through these. It's going to seem a little bit like line by line, but we're really going to elaborate and talk about all of these different items that, they might just be little tiny indicators. With that, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start under the auspice of physical abuse. Again, physical, you're going to think, that's pretty obvious. I would recognize if a child has been physically abused. If you see unexplained bruises, burns, or welts in the shape of objects. Now, those objects can also be, and here's a telltale sign, although you don't always see it, the wrist and the forearm area being grabbed. And fingers do leave a very obvious bruising pattern, or that we used to call it Indian burn when we were younger, right? When you kind of rub back and forth and you got that red marking along your arm.
Sure.
So these are, the child's being pulled or the child's being taken by their arm. And of course, they want to pull away. Well, the grip gets even tighter. And unfortunately, especially in a young child, they're going to bruise relatively easy.
Yeah. That reminds me, we did silly things that our friends used to do. Snake bites on your forearms, where you would take and wring each other's forearm, using both hands and go in the opposite directions. So that's obviously not what we're talking about here today.
Right.
But yeah, just a little reminder that just popped into my mind. It's like, we used to do silly things like that growing up.
But even silly things like that, Jason, what if the individual's being bullied? What if one of the larger children are doing this to them in order to control them, scare them, manipulate them, or hurt them? So even that could be a sign of abuse or bullying. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, bullying coming up. But any type of, and that actually is, right, is going to leave a mark, and it should still be a warning. If you're in that profession and you see one of the children and they have these ring marks on their arms, have a conversation with them, because 9 times out of 10, there's a good reason for it. And they'll tell you, me and Jimmy were playing around and we do this, snake bite or burns to each other arm. And Jimmy has some too. I gave him some. Okay, stop doing that. You're going to hurt each other. But that's an explanation that matches the injury. And that's
a lot of
it's
common sense, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so I'm reading through this list here that you have pulled up, wearing long sleeves during hot weather.
Yeah, to hide the injuries. And that's a big one too. If a child seems inappropriately dressed, longer sleeves, or other kids have short sleeves or a button-down shirt, and they always have all the way up to the top buttoned, even in a warm day, there may be a reason for that. There may not be. But let's take that, the wearing of the longer sleeves or a buttoned-up shirt all the way to the top in inappropriate weather, and let's add it to some of these other signs and symptoms, right? If you see that, that might be a cue. I need to watch little Jimmy. Jimmy keeps wearing long sleeve shirts to school and it's pretty warm outside. Let's keep an eye on Jimmy. What other signs and or warning signs does Jimmy display? So how about making excuses? And this is a big one. This was for me too. Making excuses or showing fear to avoid going home. Now that should be a huge red flag. Any child, now ask the questions, right? How come you don't want to go home? If you don't get a good answer or a good explanation that matches this fear, that's a red flag. I would say immediately get somebody else involved. But maybe they're afraid to go home because they didn't clean their room and They know they're going to get in trouble when they get home, or it could be a number of reasons, right? But if they have a bigger brother that picks on them, or if they're being abused by somebody in the family, again, we have to make that determination as professionals. So making any excuses or fears of going home.
And you started that one by saying that was a big one for you, Drew. Like that was something that you did?
That was a very big one for me. So there was a time in my life when I was younger, before the age of 10, and unfortunately, there was a situation where certain times of the week I would go home and my mom's boyfriend was there, and not a very nice person. So I had that fear. I would go to a friend's house. I would hide. I would take as much time as possible before going home. Try to anticipate when is my mom going to be home? When is safety going to be there? Yeah, I did. I had extreme fear at one point. I remember hiding at a friend's house, an apartment building next to our place.
Sure.
And, I got in trouble later. But at the time, this was the best idea. Hide and stay away.
Yeah. Okay. Were there certain excuses that you would use?
I just wouldn't show up. Or even when I got home, you could tell them in excuses. It doesn't matter. I went to my friend's house. I lost track of time. Yeah, don't do that again.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
But no, specifically though, for like a caregiver or even like the friend's parents, like, hey, like, why are you still here? It's 9:30 at night. You should be home. Like, were there certain excuses or phrases or things that you remember using specifically that these people listening to our show right now can pay attention to?
I don't recall exactly too much from that period, but again, I don't remember going home that late either. But I did have a friend. I remember this friend, and I don't know why I remember his name, Greg Hardy, of all things. Greg, if you're listening, get in touch with me. It's been 40 some odd years, 45 years or more. And I would go after school, and his dad would pick us up in a van, and we'd go home. We'd play for a while. This was common. And then I would typically go home for supper or for dinner. And there were some nights, it's like I would either stay there too long. If they actually had me leave, I would go. There was like a little play court area, and I would just go and hang out there. And there was typically other kids there. So, I could go from one place to another without actually going all the way home. I do remember that. But I don't remember exactly any excuses that I gave, except, we're having fun. And we got along great. And so, but when it was time to leave, often, depending on the day, I would find somewhere else to hang out or sit and do whatever I would do and just let the time go by.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, again, it's just important for anybody watching just to pay attention to those little one-offs. And like, if it doesn't make sense, like you were saying, pay attention to it. Let's pay attention to little Jimmy here and like kind of just keep him on the back burner, kind of monitor his behavior over the next few days.
Absolutely so.
Yeah.
And again, injuries that don't match the given explanation. And children, unfortunately, and I did the same thing. What do they call that? Stockholm syndrome, where you actually protect your abductor or punisher. And the fear is so big, Jason, that you just want to please that person as much as possible because then the pain subsides, right? The more you go along with the flow, the less pain you're going to experience. And that's what little children, myself included, have in our heads. Our fear is so strong. You don't want to piss that person off, bottom line. So if somebody asks you about an injury, you're going to lie. You're absolutely going to lie. I lied about that scar on my back for 45 years. No one, even my mom, doesn't know about that scar on my back.
When we started coaching and working together, we never really dug into that too much. Can I ask you some questions about that? Like,
okay.
Specifically, I'm curious, like, when was the first time you remember lying about it?
The first time I lied about it was, and this is going to sound horrible, my first girlfriend that we got intimate with. And I was just in high school at the time.
Okay.
And she goes, "Oh, what's that?"
Yeah, what'd you tell her?
I said, "Oh, yeah, it was a cyst and it burst." And
okay.
And then I kept that kind of story for forever.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's really all I was curious about. I appreciate you sharing that, man.
And you know, you tell that story long enough, you just start to believe it. You just kind of look at it. Yeah, nobody's going to know what that is. Although the interesting thing is when I finally confided in Maggie, just over a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, and I finally told her what had happened. And I said about the scar, I said, you know, that's an old cigarette burn. She goes, yeah, I figured. So even though I had this great lie going on and I believed myself for all these years, she didn't buy it, which is quite interesting. I'm like, why didn't you say something? She goes, it wasn't my place to say something.
I'm curious too now, man.
Yeah.
What took more courage? Again, courage to be real, everybody. Welcome to our show.
This is it right here.
What took more courage? Was it confiding in that lie? Was it maintaining that lie for 40 plus years? Or was it turning around and acknowledging the truth and sharing that with someone?
Maintaining that lie for 40 plus years got easy. Got really easy and comfortable. It got so comfortable that I started to really believe it myself. Like, nah, that wasn't me. I'm not that kid. No way. And everyone's buying what I'm telling them that was. People who see me with my shirt off. Okay, yeah, I have a spot on my back. It never changes color. There's no pigmentation whatsoever. It's kind of a funky little scar. And it is as white can be during the summer. And I could be really olive tan around it. And then it really shows. But yeah, there's absolutely zero pigmentation. And I had it solved in my head. And it was brutal telling her the truth. It's
okay, man.
I told myself I wasn't going to do this. It was one of those things, Jason, I felt so bad for lying to her because I don't like to lie to my wife about anything. And it crushed me and it tore me apart. And for her to even said, yeah, I figured. I'm only fooling myself. I'm only lying to myself. And anyone out there, and I apologize for getting a little emotional, anyone out there that is hiding something from their past, and if you have a beautiful, loving wife like mine, just trust her. You know, it's the hardest thing I ever had to do, but I tell you what, I was so angry about everything. And if you watch our podcast up to this point, and when Maggie came on, I was a different person. She really hated me. Even our little boy that we adopted was afraid to come over to me. I was this tyrant. And I had to do something. I had to fix myself. I had to face whatever it was I needed to face. I knew what it was. I didn't want to do it. But now that I did, and the ability just to talk to you and talk to everyone right now, even though I'm getting a little choked up, this by far is one of the strongest things I've ever had to do. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to do it, to be honest. It's something that I wish upon nobody. And if you're there and you need someone to reach out to and talk to, reach out and talk to one of us. Just message us. You can see right below our names. I'm at WeAndCamCam on Instagram. Jason is at The Obstacle Remover on Instagram as well. Or you can message us in this podcast. A message, if you want one of us to reach out to you. 1 heart for me, I'll reach out to you personally. 2 hearts for Jason, he'll reach out to you personally. Or you can catch us, like I said, at WeAndCamCam or at The Obstacle Remover. You're not alone. If you feel like you're alone, you are not alone. And I felt really alone, Jason. And and I'm sorry for taking this off to a tangent. It was tough. It was a very good question you just asked, and it was really tough. Incredibly so.
I appreciate you for sharing that, and feel free to share your guys' stories in the comment section down below. We need to hear from you. We want more engagement on this channel. We're just going to ask you just bluntly here. Okay. Everybody has a story to share. Drew's story is one of courage. You'll see in some of the other episodes, my story was one of fear. And so I got teary-eyed you sharing your story, man. I appreciate it.
I love you, brother. So talking about the next section here, we're going to talk about emotional abuse. And those of you that want to downplay emotional abuse and say, well, at least you weren't hit. Emotional abuse, and we had your ex-wife on our show for 2 segments just recently, and she even talked about how your body in the PTSD and even her teacher yelling at her or pointing something out that she did wrong, right? She had to write on the board, and how that emotionally affected her. So emotional abuse is incredibly powerful. So powerful that it even delays the physical and or emotional development of a child.
What does that mean?
Okay. Exactly, right? Delaying the physical so they don't grow up to be as athletic or as confident or as fast as their peers, right? Emotional abuse is really hits some serious psychological deficit. Emotional development. Emotionally abused children can act very immature or withdraw very quickly. And or have a very aggressive behavior. And we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail. But if you think about that, how powerful emotional abuse is, and emotional abuse, really, if you really want to take it back to go to season 1, episode 9, where my wife Maggie talks about her loving parents, and yet those little triggers and those little challenges that she's never going to be good enough. Now, granted, her parents just wanted the best from her. But really, at the end of the day, and she suffers today with this emotional blockage. She won't get dressed in a light room. She doesn't put makeup on in a bright room. She hates looking at herself in the mirror. She always thinks she's fat. She's very athletic. She always looks at every little flaw, every little problem, I mean, you name it. If we were millionaires, she would go and get plastic surgery everywhere on her body. And she has a smoking body, people. But she has such low self-esteem because of this emotional damage. And that was minor. Her damage was given to her from loving parents. Can you imagine a parent that just isn't a loving parent or is a hateful parent? And by the way, if you grew up in an emotionally abusive home when you were younger, again, please reach out to us.
We're teaching by example. You know, I never got that. And it was more of a do as I say, not as I do type of thing. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But our kids, they need to see us being good role models.
Absolutely,
so
they do.
Acknowledging when your reactions went a little overboard. Hey, that was wrong of me to react that way, and I'm sorry.
Yep.
And then they need that reassurance. I still love you. I'm not going anywhere. It's like you are mine, and this world, this life that we have together is perfect. Like the kids need that reassurance.
Absolutely, they do.
If you don't mind me interjecting here a little bit,
sure.
Because the emotional and mental abuse, I think, is a tricky topic. There's a big difference between psychological torture, almost. Absolutely. You know, coming home and it can range, I think, anywhere from just being neglected or being verbally assaulted, being told there's something wrong with you, or why couldn't you have been more like your brother, or I never wanted you.
That's the worst, people.
You know, and I think that's actual abusing your relationship, specifically with your kids. And mentally, it's very draining. It's hard to comprehend. For a young brain to be able to comprehend that is very difficult. You know, and these are the people that we look up to. These are our caregivers saying these things. When I came into this world, I didn't believe that about me, but this person that I look up to is showing me that. So it must be true. Because a lot of these things that are on this list, excessive withdrawal, fearfulness, anxiety, overly compliant behavior, low self-esteem, and low self-worth. That describes me down to a T. And I can see that starting to describe my son, which I did not grow up in what you would say was a very, I don't want to paint my parents in a bad picture, in a bad light whatsoever, but I just remember my father drank more than, he was drunk more than he was sober. And there were things that I shouldn't have seen when I was a young boy. I remember my mother tried to be there, but she was very emotionally unstable herself and really couldn't. And so how I related to those situations created a lot of low self-esteem, lack of self-confidence. I withdrew a lot. I had one close friend and all we ever did. I wanted to ask you this really quick, Drew, because in one of our previous episodes, you had mentioned how you were a preppy boy. You were kind of a jock, like in high school, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Take a guess. What kind of kid was I in high school?
Now, see, I look at you now and I would think you were a jock in high school. But given what you just told me.
That's why I had to stop really quick.
Yeah. You were the skinny kid that maybe bad hygiene, kind of kept to himself.
Close. I was actually overweight. I was actually extremely overweight.
Really?
I had one close friend, and all we did was video game. I was the gamer.
Okay.
Yeah. Poor hygiene, sure. Definitely poor hygiene. But no, I was overweight and gamed as all of my spare time. I was getting lost into a virtual world because I didn't want to be a part of my real world.
Real world, yeah.
But now I'm thinking about Dash, my son. He has a lot of these things. He withdraws a lot.
But he saw you guys go through a divorce. Do you think that has a lot to do with his...
I took my childhood and I did everything that I could to make sure that he was loved, he was adored, he knew we were always there. But how he related to the things that we were going through created a certain sense of emotional abuse in him. And I don't want to take away or minimize real emotional abuse from people that have suffered that. But this is a complex topic, I think.
I do have to say something real quick. Having met your son online, I haven't met him in person. I mean, we're 6,000 miles away. But the couple of times that I spoke with him online, he is a bright young man. And he's really just cool. He just answers your questions and he shares with you. And you could just see the sparkle in his eye. He's thinking. So and I understand the anxiety, but he even talked about his anxiety, which that takes a lot. That for someone, he's 12 years old, right?
Yeah.
That really takes a lot of structure and a lot of self-esteem to be able to talk about the fact that he suffers from anxiety the way he talked about it, and then shared with me some of the techniques that you and he do to mitigate this anxiety when he has his little attacks. And what a bright, good-looking young man. I mean, seriously, he is really adjusting very well. And yeah, I think every child that goes through a divorced family, and I have 2 adult children, obviously, if I have a grandchild, and for a while they were really upset with the situation. They were teenagers at the time, so they were a little bit older than Dash, but there was some stress, some anxiety. My son, Devin, who was very athletic most of his life, started eating, gained a lot of weight out of his stress and out of his depression, but then he got over that. And we started working out. He started building muscle. He came here to Poland and he says, Dad, I want to do 2 things. I want to work out at the gym and get some muscle, and I want to learn how to ride a motorcycle. So we did those 2 things. Actually, we did 3. I also taught him, Maggie and I had this huge contract that we couldn't do ourselves, e-learning. And he says, maybe I can jump in and help you. I said, you know what? I'll pay you. And so he went on YouTube, learned what he could about the applications for e-learning, and just dove right in. He now does this for his own job, his own profession, which is quite extraordinary. Bright kid, smart kid, beautiful wife. Now they have this little baby, absolutely adorable, best looking kid ever. I mean, I'm biased, but she is really cute. But
you haven't gotten to meet your granddaughter then in person?
No,
yet?
I'm going to do that in April coming up.
Okay,
very
nice.
soon. Yeah, I'll fly out to the States and meet her. But yeah, Dash, fantastic little boy. And I could see, I mean, obviously you've done a lot of work with him. Your ex-wife has done a lot of work with him. And you say that your ex-wife is remarried, and he seems like he's really good in Dash's life. So Dash has a very strong structure right now, and that's important. So we can take something negative, someone that's been through a divorce situation, someone that's been through maybe even an abusive situation from a parent, and that person is out of the equation. Now we can start to rebuild. When I was actually even younger, my parents did go through a divorce as well. I don't remember even most of that. So I'm sure it was pretty stressful.
Yeah. Do you think how about this? This might be a good question for our audience to come back to too. I would love to know everybody's opinion. I want to know your opinion too, Drew. Does a parent's lack of emotional intelligence or the inability or unwillingness to become emotionally intelligent, is that emotional abuse to your kids?
If it's directed at them, yes, it can be.
Okay.
But otherwise, it can become neglect, which is also a form of abuse, right? Which we're going to talk about very shortly.
Yeah, it's definitely a form of neglect. Yeah.
So let's skip around a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and let's talk about neglect, and we'll come back to sexual abuse in a little bit. Poor hygiene, being constantly dirty. And let's change the view of this. So I remember my kids came home one day and they had lice. And I asked, how did you guys get lice? Okay, there was a little bit of lice going around the school. They pointed the fingers to this one child that looked like they had been neglected a little bit, right? Dirtier than the other children, the hair a little bit matted, tennis shoes with holes in them. Definitely not in the best form as far as hygiene and as far as just being dirty all the time. So, of course, everyone blamed the lice on this little kid. I'm not going to say any names. Now, here's an old wives' tale for you that's going to be broken right now. Mythbusters 101. Lice actually like clean hair. So the chances of this lice outbreak starting, now it may have, but every child in this class came home, and every child in this class that I remember, we got that RIT system, and my ex-wife went through, and we started to find little lice eggs, and this is horrible. And we started the treatment. Then after so many days, you have to do it again because of the eggs, and you have to do it again. So everyone in the class came down with lice, or came home with lice, I should say. Everyone in the class. And I'm itching now thinking about it. So it has nothing to do with now, the movies even depict, oh, this child is so neglected. Look at her. She has lice. And that's not necessarily true. But here's some other things that we have to think about. Unintended medical or dental issues. If a child has or comes to school with a dirty or falling off Band-Aid and a scraped arm, and obviously you look at it, it's like, looks like that's getting a little infected. Plus the child might be of poor hygiene and or just dirty, right? Or their clothes aren't in the best shape. And adding to it, medical or dental issues. I mean, this is a big telltale sign of neglect. Frequently hungry. Now, I was very hungry as a little kid, and I was very skinny as a little kid. And I started to lose weight. And part of that was my fear of asking for food. When I was at home, I got in trouble for asking for food once. So
I remember that story.
Yeah, you remember me telling you that story. People, if your children are hungry, please feed them. Anyway, I'm not going to digress. So part of being neglected, obviously, they're not going to have the best nutrition. Now, a lot of times they might just get a bag of chips. Okay, they're going to love that, right? That's fine. Kids love chips, but that's poor nutrition. So they're going to have other problems. Their teeth are going to start to have problems. They might have some other medical issues. They may not even get that bag of chips. Then all of a sudden you see, and if you see a child that starts off the school year relatively clean, relatively nice clothes, and as the school year progresses, you see them wearing the same clothes day after day. You see their shoes starting to have holes in them. You see that they're losing weight and withdrawing. This is kind of a bad sign. And I'm gonna even add to it one more thing, because a lot of neglected children seek additional attention. So think about it. They don't get attention at home. So they're going to look for attention where they can. They're going to ask for food where they can. Now, it breaks my heart to think about these children out there hungry and scared.
I'm reminded of a story that Amanda, my ex-wife, had shared a while ago when she ran a daycare. She remembers this little girl, 2 or 3 years old, and still in diapers. This little girl, she would change her diaper, on a regular basis, like you should. 2, 3 times a day, or, however many times a kid needs to go. But she started to suspect something was off at home. And so at the end of the day, when she changed this little girl's diaper, she took a marker, a black Sharpie, and wrote on the inside of this diaper. And that was 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the kids daycare. And when that little girl came back the next day, still wearing the same diaper.
Oh, wow.
So the parents weren't doing anything for that little girl.
Wow.
She needed to get changed. I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to let the daycare do it.
Right.
Who knows what else was going on in that household.
Gosh.
But those are the things. Like we started this podcast, this episode saying, if you're in a position of power like that, a caregiver, somebody, a teacher, a nurse, if you work at an orphanage or a foster care or daycare center, pay attention to these things.
Please pay attention to that. All right, segue into sexual abuse. Avoidance of certain people or places without an explanation. And that's a big one, folks. So if little Johnny or little Jenny says, I don't want to be around that person, or I don't want to go home because, or, they get scared, and knowledge of sex that is inappropriate for the child's age. And I can see where, looking back, I probably knew a lot more than I should have known. And I made it very abundantly clear, inappropriately, talking about this or that in different situations. And I can't recall a situation, but I can recall sometimes just knowing a little bit too much about, sex. Lack of eye contact and not wanting to participate. I still today don't like people staring me in the eyes. It really annoys me. Now, I won't turn away. I'll sit there and stare back, but it's a very uncomfortable feeling, a very uncomfortable situation. Yeah, I could see all the pimples on your nose, buddy. We're going to do the extreme blackhead approach. Lack of eye contact. I can fake it, but there is a discomfort to it. And I know where it comes from. Not wanting to participate. And I remember that until I went to, until I was about 13 or 14 years old, then things started to really change. And I started working out at 14. Like I said, I had my first girlfriend at 14. And things started to change for me. But before that, I really didn't want to participate. Just leave me alone. Trouble walking or sitting. That one should be a telltale sign. So if anyone sees a child that's limping or can't sit straight, can't sit down, sits to one side, have that conversation with that child. Or just assume, send them to the nurse. Did you hurt your leg? Yeah, you're going to go see the nurse. We'll figure out what's going on.
That's a raw one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Is extremely tough. And, if we bring the statistics back, which we've talked about in earlier segments, remember, 1 in every 5. So 1.6 billion people. Out of that 1.6 billion people, 1 in every 9 males are sexually abused. 1 in every 6 females are sexually abused. And that's only the ones that come forward and talk about it. And if it took me over 40 years to talk about it, I promise you there's a lot more. And this is a sad place.
Very, very sad. And gosh, we're just trying to do our little part here, but it feels overwhelming.
It does.
Knowing those numbers are those numbers, and hopefully we can do a little bit to spread some hope.
We have to.
What do you think about the fact that kids are being exposed to the internet more and more?
That doesn't make things any better. Yeah, there's too many predators out there. And there's too much bullying going on out there. And we're going to actually segue into bullying here in just a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is a lot of problem with kids on the internet. We don't let Cam. I mean, Cam's only 9 years old, but we don't let Cam on the internet. We don't even let him play games where other people who he doesn't know can join in and play and chat with him. We just don't do it. Won't do it. And we always look at it as electronic devices. So there's no hiding that, oh yeah, I'm chatting to this person. Oh, look how nice they are. No, he doesn't get that opportunity to begin with. We monitor him quickly. So I put on here bullying and other general signs, and this is not necessarily fall under bullying. It can also fall under the auspice of neglect. It can fall under the auspice of emotional, physical, and or sexual abuse. So any change in behavior, and this may differ from expected. So let me give you guys an example. I was the class clown. I brought so much attention to myself that people wanted to push me away. It worked. I didn't have to hide in the corner. I was sent to the corner. So did I outsmart the system? Yeah, at the time I think I did. What would really have been smart is if I had talked to somebody. But
Was that intentional, do you think?
I think it was. I think it was very intentional.
Like you knew what you were doing.
Much attention to myself as possible, because the byproduct of it is, gosh, will you just shut up? Gosh, will you just go sit in the corner? You're driving. Will you go take a time out? And really all I wanted to do was just withdraw and be away from everybody. So with somebody telling me to be away from everybody, I'm winning this, right? Now I'm just that annoying individual in class and disrupting everyone. And people are looking at me like, oh, there goes Drew again. So if a child, and the reason why I'm saying this, if a child changes their behavior, and this is a change in behavior, teachers, you're going to notice this first. Caretakers, you're going to notice this. A nanny will notice this. If the change in behavior is different from expected, if you have an outgoing, if you have a fun, if you have a child that likes to participate, sometimes tell a joke or two, sometimes raise their hand and always, give the answer in class, and all of a sudden they change their behavior. And quite the opposite. If you have a child that kind of sat there, was kind of shy, was kind of quiet, and like myself, and all of a sudden now they're the class clown, now they're disrupting everybody. Again, that's a change in behavior. So something to think about, something to look at. This one, and I talked about this earlier, sensitivity to sudden noise and or movements. That was a big one for me. Sitting alone, avoiding friends, fearing others.
Yeah. Why? Can you make the connection to that one?
The sensitivity to noise or movements?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had this anticipatory fear of pain or something happening to me. And it did. But anytime there was a sudden movement, anytime there was a change, and even change in tone, and we talked about this, Maggie's voice can change. Yeah. That's still a tough one for me. And it doesn't even have to be directed at me. We got in a little argument just yesterday because she was upset about her computer, and I just took it personal. And then, I said, hey, I'm really sorry. And, and she apologized to it. We made up, and we both realized that, hey, that was really kind of dumb of both of us. But this is something I'm still having battles controlling, is that change in tone, that sudden change. And it could be, when I was younger, it was a sudden noise. It was sudden movement. It was somebody dropping something, banging something, hitting something, punching something, yelling. So anytime, and I was very sensitive to that. So sudden noises and or movements was really big for me. Okay. This is one thing I didn't do very much. I didn't sit alone. I didn't avoid friends, and I didn't show the fear of others. Now, I had a great fear of certain individuals, or a certain individual, I should say. But when it came to school and hanging out with friends, I hung out with friends, didn't sit alone. I made sure that as I even grew older and I became a lot more confident in myself, then I became the jock in school. So I pushed to become part of the it crowd, if you will. Now, I was always nice to everybody. I didn't pick on the un-it crowd, but I was definitely part of that it crowd going through high school, which is kind of interesting. Staying behind and allowing other peers to leave first, that is a definite telltale sign of either something's going on at home or somebody is bullying this individual in school, and they're letting them leave first because it isn't safe to leave together. So in that case, and I really would like to ask all of the caretakers, all of the teachers, if you have a student that's sitting behind, waiting for everyone to leave, and they're always the last one out, just follow them through the hall and see if somebody isn't picking on them at the other side of the school. Or, they're leaving outside to go home, but they're staying back for a few minutes, pretending that they're putting stuff together, asking questions that they've already asked, stalling to leave the classroom. There's a reason for that. Follow them, see if somebody isn't bullying them in school. And if nobody's bullying them in school, this is a good conversation to have. Are you afraid to go home? It's a difficult conversation, but it's a very good conversation. Sudden inability to focus or concentrate. And Amanda talked about ADHD, so it could just be that. Maybe their medication was changed. Maybe as they're getting older, they're feeling a little bit more of that attention deficit. But it could be something else, right? Sudden inability to focus or concentrate. So something's on their mind, something's going on. I would assume that when you guys were going through your divorce, maybe Dash had some inability to focus because he was worried about what was going on between, mommy and daddy.
Yep, absolutely. I remember that conversation too that we had with Amanda about, not necessarily that everybody who has ADHD now experienced trauma in the sense of the word, but maybe they had some pretty traumatic events happened that they can't necessarily define or make sense in their own brain. And so they're constantly scanning all the time.
Yep.
And I wonder what the science would say about that.
I bet you it's something interesting too. A red or puffy eyes indicative of crying. That's probably a big one. They come to school, they pretend everything's all right. I would come to school and I had allergies. I have bad allergies. Always have allergies.
Crying a lot before school?
When I was younger, I did. Frequent absences from school. Now, I wasn't absent from school. School was a safe place for me, but there are many children who are absent from school frequently. And that can be a big one, right? They were abused at home. Something happened to them at home. They have to wait for these bruises to heal, these scars to heal before they can go back to class.
Yeah.
Little Johnny's sick. Well, little Johnny gets sick a lot. Yeah. He's allergic to cats and we have 5 cats. Okay. Maybe not.
Yeah. And what about the kids, the frequent absences from school? You said school was your safe place.
Yeah.
And so a lot of kids that go, they go to school, they just love being there. And maybe when the reminders go out that, you guys have early dismissal today, or, you got Thursday, Friday off for teacher conferences or whatever. And then that you can see that one kid that kind of like his safe place is being taken away from him. But
exactly.
I wonder about the other kids too, that, they have stuff going on at home and they don't want to go to school because it's going to bring attention to them. So they skip class or whatnot, and then they're getting into trouble elsewhere, either on the streets or I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I wasn't in that position. I can't really say, but yeah. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, if somebody's watching and what Jason just described, taken to the streets, and if you are brave enough to share your story, or even if you want to share it to us personally, please do so. Message us below. And like I said, 1 heart emoji for myself or 2 hearts for Jason. We will reach back to you individually. Or if you really feel like commenting down below and starting a discussion of, hey, I remember when. And this is a platform where we moderate everything. We will moderate every single comment down there. We will not allow bullies on our platform. We've removed people, we've blocked people, we've even reported individuals for putting up inappropriate comments. So we will not let this bullying or anything happen on this platform. You have our word. We're constantly checking it. So we want to make as safe a place as possible for everyone to just come forward and just
absolutely
be safe
and judgment free.
Exactly. And if you don't feel comfortable doing this in a public area, again, message us privately. We will have that conversation with you. We will hold space for you. I promise. You reach out to us, we reach back to you. And on that note, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. This was a tough one today for me, Jason.
It was. I'm curious, before we ended, Drew, there's a lot of overlap in a lot of these. And there's a lot of, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, whether or not it was forced upon you or it was something that you just related to. One of the biggest things I want to leave people with a little bit of hope before we finish this episode. And if you're okay sharing, Drew, like, of all of the abuse that you went through, you don't have to name it, but I'm curious as to what the belief was about yourself that started to form.
Something was wrong with me. I was I was wrong. I was guilty. I did something wrong. At one point, I deserved it.
Okay. And so that's something that I want everybody listening to pay attention to that. And how many people can relate to that phrase, there's something wrong with me, or I deserve to be treated this way. And that is a belief that gets formed very early in childhood. And that is a belief that we hold on to for dear life, because that is now our identity. And it is so much scarier and so much more difficult to give up that identity than it is to start to form a new one. And I just want to challenge everybody to look inward and ask, is that belief true? And Drew, knowing what you know now, did you deserve that type of life?
No,
is there something wrong with you?
Not even close.
No. And I want to put this out there as well. For anybody that's a parent or anybody that's thinking about being a parent, if you can imagine being a parent, okay, and a loving parent, okay, I can only imagine there's people that are out there that have kids or have had kids that they didn't want to be a parent, okay, and I'm sorry that you're in those situations, but when you're born, the doctor doesn't look at you and say, this kid has no value until they start becoming something, or they start being able to deliver, until they start being able to show up in the world a certain kind of way. No, that person, that baby is born into the world perfect with value just for being a baby. And if you're a loving parent, you do not, you don't look at your kid and you say, you're nice, welcome to the world, but I'm not going to love you until you start to show up the way that I want you to in the world. Right. And so everybody that's listening, like Drew, for yourself too, a reminder to you, and I'm reminding myself as I'm saying this as well, those old stories aren't true.
No.
And the fact is that we can just show up in the world as ourselves and be loved and accepted for who we are. And that's really, again, the reminder, that's what this show is about. That's what these episodes are about, helping people remember that it's going to be difficult, it's going to be challenging, but if you can find just a little bit of courage to bring that authenticity, that vulnerability to the surface, it's worth it.
Definitely is worth it. And leaving on that note, and by the way, thank you for joining us today. We do have a special gift. We actually have 2 special gifts for everyone listening, everyone watching. Down below, I'm going to put 2 links for you guys. One of them is this actual warning signs poster that we read through, that we created. And please download it. There's absolutely no tricks. There's no gimmicks. There's not even branding on it. It's just the information that we talk through in bullet points. It's a poster. Print it, put it up in public places, especially if you're a caretaker, if you're a teacher, if you're a social worker, if you work in a medical environment. This is something that just that gentle reminder on the wall, people can run or just walk past it and say, oh yeah, little Jimmy is kind of portraying some of these traits. I'm going to take a closer look at that. So this is our free gift to you. It's a free download. And also I'm going to add a link to my very first book that I wrote. When I first started the We and Cam project, I thought it would be great to write children's books. I dabbled with an activity / coloring book, and I love the zoo. The zoo is a very special place for me. So this book is about the zoo. Again, there's no coupons, there's no advertisements, there's no price, there's no fee. This is completely free, just something fun for the kids. And it teaches the kids like 11 different animals in 6 different languages. So I had a little bit of fun with that. And this is the first book that I published on Amazon. I used to sell it for $10. Now it's going to be yours for free to download and share with everyone. Please hit like down below. Please share this episode with as many people as possible. Please share the links to the downloads that we're going to give for free. Who knows? The right person might see this. And by the way, the coloring books are kind of fun. My son, Cam, he's a little bit old for the coloring books. He likes the other We and Cam books that we put together for the IC7. But he still plays with them, and he does the coloring on them. So it's cute. It's a lot of fun. But those are our gifts, just as a way to say thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting, and we love absolutely every one of you. Jason, any closing thoughts?
Do want you to share something with me, Drew. One more thing I want you to share.
I knew it. I was going to quickly hide.
No, this is all a good thing. Because you mentioned how you love the zoo, and I want you to share with all of our listeners. Okay, if you can find some more courage to be real here for us. You were sharing a story with me, I think last week or maybe the week before, about what you and your buddies did when you got together.
Oh, yeah.
There was 3 of you. You guys went out bar hopping, getting drunk, and doing all the things
did
that
not.
guys do, right? What'd you do?
So a couple of us met in Berlin, and I have these 2 friends, one of them in Montenegro, one of them in Switzerland, and these are just guys that I absolutely love. We decided, they know that I loved the zoo as a child. They know my story. They know everything about my past. I've shared it with them very openly. And we found out that there's a really cool zoo in Berlin. They're like, oh, let's go to the zoo. Okay. If you guys don't mind, I'd love to go to the zoo. So we went to the zoo, and here's the tough guys that I hang out with, right? We got ice cream at the zoo. It was a warm day. Not only did we get ice cream at the zoo, we waited in another line to get other ice cream with our ice cream that we were already eating. Like, that wasn't enough. Let's get more ice cream. Let's stand in line and eat the ice cream that we're already eating, and let's get this hand-scooped ice cream. And that's the tough guys, big boozers that I hang out with. But it was a fun day. It was fantastic. We rented those little scooters, those electric Bolt scooters. We went to the zoo. We spent more than half the day there. We ate junk food. It was just we were kids. There's no other way to explain it. I absolutely cherish those moments.
I think that is a great way to just show everybody what is possible. You can go through some very serious abuse as a young kid. Very, very serious. And Drew's very open. So if you think that you have a bad story, reach out to this man and you can swap horror stories. But you can go through that. You can shave your head. You can get big, muscular to scare people. You can join the Reebok running team, and you can be a model posing with your shirt off, and you can be the guy that can chase people down mountains in the ski patrol because they, whatever. Like, you can be this badass. You can jump on the back of a motorcycle, and you can just be somebody who is, do not mess with me. And now in your mid to late 50s, you can also be the same guy who stands in line at the zoo for ice cream. Like, that is the epitome of a healed, masculine, grounded man right there.
And it was a Reebok aerobic team, by the way.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you for clarifying.
No, it's all good. Anyway, God bless everyone. Please, down below, hit like, hit share, download our free items and enjoy them. Reach out to us. Let us know. Talk to us. If you have a past that you're ashamed of, reach out to me. Reach out to Jason. And I promise you, there's nothing to be ashamed of. I know what you feel. I've been there. Jason knows what you feel. He's been there. But I promise you, there's people like us, not only surviving, but we're thriving. And you can be one of them.
Beautiful.
Courage to be real, where real stories break the silence.